Lazer updates can be sorted into two categories: new features like daily challenge or mod customization, and things required to meet your expectations as an Osu player, like features from stable and fixing things that didn't work as intended. These are generally what people want to see more of, but often these take priority, and that's especially the case with today's update. So I sat down with Peppy.
I am recording.
To walk through the changelog. And of course, there are still some new things to talk about here, so we'll start with those.
Oh, the collection and favorite buttons on results screens is huge. Now you can very quickly add bitmaps to collections from the results screen. Oh, and there is also, there's been quite a bit of discussion around redesigning of the results screen, just trying to get movement there, and there has been quite a bit of movement.
You might also notice that mod icons look slightly different now.
Clayton has been going through Flight's design documents and pulling out all the different mod icon designs that he's done to date. And I think that there was like eight or nine different designs, and we're just trying to consolidate them and figure out which ones work and which ones we can just get rid of. And this one that got into the game is basically just improving the contrast. It should be immediately visible.
A lot of players are going to like this new replay analysis section. This includes hit markers, where the side is colored depending on which key you press. Frame markers, which have the same color scheme, just a lot more points. Cursor path, basically a big cursor trail. An option to hide the cursor. And display length, because different lengths work for different contexts. Paired with Lazer's replay seeking features, this is a super useful way to see exactly how precise your aim is. Or isn't. The editor had the most new stuff this update, as usual thanks to Alabombi. He's making his vision for the perfect editor a reality with features like this new slider adjustment tool. You can make sliders shorter or longer by dragging this end bit. That's convenient already, but the real appeal of this is what happens when you hold shift. The timeline stays the same, but slider's speed changes. So if you find this velocity multiplier stuff to be too abstract, this is going to help.
I guess this just exposes one more way to do the same things already offered in the editor, but it feels a lot more intuitive to the user, like not having to go to the timeline to make these adjustments.
For a while now, the arrow keys would move between timeline ticks, and holding shift would make it move between white ticks. Alabombi added a few new shortcuts today. Holding control will now skip between objects, and holding both shift and control will go between hit sound points, these pink bubbles. It automatically opens this panel too, with the goal of making hit sounding comfortable with only keyboard functions. Lots of potential. It'll take some getting used to though. And while messing with timeline stuff, Alabombi fixed a bug that was around even in the stable editor. Moving past a timeline point will put your cursor on nothing. In Lazer, it'll now move to the timing point instead. And as you can see, a few timeline elements got redesigned. This happened like 4 updates in a row now, so I'm not going to dwell on it too much. As far as new features go, that's about it, so let's get back to expectations. Osu looks like a simple game, but there are details everywhere that become extremely obvious as soon as they're gone. Longtime OS players are intimately familiar with the details in stable, and so to meet their expectations, Lazer needs to re-implement those tiny details. Sometimes that's as simple as adding a feature. Like today's update adds the polygon creation tool to the editor, a long requested feature that I'm sure mappers will appreciate.
This was a change which Spaceman made like maybe 8 months ago, and it kind of just got forgotten about, so it's finally in. The star fountains have been added back and they're present on all skins. They're still skinnable. I think you can use star2.png to skin them. Some of these visual pieces of gameplay which are missing have really taken away from the OS experience, so it's good to see them coming back. I guess next is combo bursts.
People's favorite feature, of course.
Well, I think combo bursts are actually off by default in stable these days. Maybe we'll make them good enough that people want them in Lazer. I don't know.
Yeah, good luck. More often than not, re-implementing stable features in Lazer isn't a perfect process. Again, it's the details that matter, so when something feels off about one of these copied features, the Lazer devs try to fix it. Here's a bunch of examples from today's update. The legacy key counter. It's placed here in stable, and it was previously here in Lazer, so it was then adjusted to match stable. Cursor expansion. This is how it worked in stable, and this was how it worked in Lazer. As of this update, now they're the same. Catcher after images. This is how they looked in stable, but in lazer they were a lot less dense. Catch players felt this was uncomfortable, so now they match. Beat map search. In stable, you could type unplayed equals to find maps you haven't played. In lazer, you couldn't, so, well, searching unplayed equals was kind of stupid. So now it's played equals 0 for unplayed and played equals 1 for the rest. Placing a slider. You could place a slider and play the song in stable, but pressing space would stop slider creation on lazer. Now, though, they work the same. And everyone's favorite, keybinds.
The grid distance snap key binding thing. I don't know if you saw the tweet about that, but
Oh, I love Angry Captain tweets, yeah.
okay. Yeah, it was just a mistake. The tweet made it sound like we were doing this and forcing it on users and stuff. It's like, nope, got it wrong, and you were the first person to notice, or the first person to actually bring it up to us.
So, okay, people have clear expectations for how certain features work based on precedent from stable. When it comes to laser-specific features, though, expectations are still a factor. When something unexpected happens, no matter how small it is, it can throw you off. So a lot of features need tweaking, like the hold for menu button.
It was kind of my design directive to have it always visible, because if there's no button there and you're playing using a tablet or a touch screen, there's actually no way to exit gameplay. So it felt like something nice to have, but as with most distractive things in an interface, people don't want it there. So now you can, I think there's a toggle for it now in the settings.
Wait, I thought it was hidden the whole time.
It was almost hidden. It was at like 1% opacity until you get close to it, but people playing at 4x3 were potentially having sliders go underneath it when they were like slightly outside of the playfield. Yeah, it's always the edge cases.
Or here's another example. You'd expect the break overlay text to always be visible, but depending on circumstances, it wasn't. So this shadow was added. And unrelated, there's also an animation for the progress bar. The newly added Mania touch controls had a problem too. Laptop players could accidentally press these with a trackpad, so this update disallows that.
Hopefully that won't affect anyone. I think most touch PCs these days have proper touch support, so it's not going to affect you if that's the case.
People generally liked the daily challenge intro, but they didn't expect it to play every time they entered the lobby. As of now, you'll only see it once per day. This hover to expand thing was added last update, and unfortunately a lot of people still have the muscle memory to click it. Now clicking just does nothing, so it matches expectations for everyone.
I made a groundbreaking optimization to song select. We had this behavior where song select would actually start loading when the game opens up, and also like every time you exit out of song select back to the main menu, it would start loading the next song select just so it's ready to go, because if we didn't do that, going into song select would have a huge load time. People noticed opening song select from the multiplayer screen. They noticed that was a lot slower than opening it the normal way, and that's because it wasn't being preloaded in the multiplayer screen. So Spaceman was like, okay, I'll just preload it there as well. I'm like, wait a second, the preload is already like pretty crappy behavior. I'm sure we can do this a better way. So I basically decoupled the expensive part of song select to be global, so it gets loaded once and never again in the background. And song select used to stutter when you entered it visually, and that stutter should have disappeared now.
Nice that the GitHub page has a video example I can use.
Please use the video. I spent 1 hour grilling away in a video editor to make that happen.
This final change doesn't actually affect the game itself, but rather how the game exists on your computer. It's complicated, so I'll let Peppy explain it.
The updater system that we use in Lazer has been a bit of a pain point for us. The guy that was maintaining that project has kind of split it off into his own project called Velopack, and we've finally gotten around to updating to use Velopack. With it, this brings automatic update support on macOS and Linux, which we didn't have until now. And it also means that a lot of things which weren't working on Windows due to the update having bugs have been fixed. And the main one I can think of which affects me personally is pinning Lazer to the taskbar in Windows had some issues. Like, depending on when you pinned it, it could potentially get stuck on the taskbar, or it could potentially disappear the next time there's an update. All of that should be fixed.
And that's pretty much it for this update. Most of these changes were about just meeting base level expectations, but new things are on the way. Peppy spent like 10 minutes explaining major skinning framework changes to me, which I won't include here because all the skinning stuff doesn't actually affect people in this update. Is that right?
Honestly, I'm just right now trying to rationalize what we've been doing over the last update cycle and why there may not be like more major features in here. There's stuff going on in the background. I'm also trying to get the performance points ecosystem ready to do the combo scale deploy.
Oh, nice. When do you think that'll happen?
Are you going to put this in the video?